All right. So today we're going to be going over chapter 4. We're going to be dealing with mainly our expenses. So, especially when we're dealing with our vendors, we'll be creating a lot of expenses as well as we're going to be dealing with our accounts payable. Because most oftentimes, vendors are going to allow you to have an account with them, so they have you build a relationship with them, so you will be dealing with a lot of bills that are coming your way. And what the great thing about QuickBooks is, this is the easiest way to manage your bills, and set reminders for you to pay on time. So excuse me there. So I want to be able to show you all of these things. So here, if we look at here in chapter 4, we have all of these topics. Okay, so we're going to be learning about how to set up a vendor, things like that, how to enter bills and how to pay them. Now, there are a few ways you can actually pay these expenses as well as these bills. And so we're going to be looking into that. And then I believe we're going to be looking in how to write a check, how to print them, how to void them. And the one thing that I really, really, really want you guys to really know is going to be learning about Bill Tracker. Bill Tracker, to me, so I've been experienced, like, teaching this. I think Bill Tracker is my most favorite application on QuickBooks, just because every time you enter your bill and every time you pay it, it keeps track of it and it lets you know how much money you owe in grand total and how much of it you actually have paid. So that's what I really like Bill Tracker, and it's you can enter in your bills that way, and you can also pay your bills that way. So I'm excited to get to show you how Bill Tracker works. But for a majority of this time, it is a very lengthy chapter. It's about 45 pages, as I mentioned before. So if you guys can get your books open to page 97, that would be great. And we'll go through every single step that we can as possible. Okay, so today, not too many, not too long of a break, but if you guys are willing, I'm willing to push through and try to teach you as much as I can before it's time to go. So we may not be able to actually have time to do an exercise in class. So that is going to be for you guys to be able to do at home. Also, I will make a little announcement after when we take our first break about the books, because I have great news for you guys on how you guys can start setting up your QuickBooks. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started. So here it's asking me to open up my portable file, expenses 18. I already went ahead and did that for you just to save a little time, just because it takes about like 5 to 10 minutes to load and bypassing through all those hoops. So I already did it way in advance. So at the top, just to make sure that you are in the correct file, at the top of the bar, you have a title bar, right? It's above the menu bar, and it's going to let you know that what the file title is, okay? So it just makes sure that you're on the correct one. So let's see. So the first thing it's going to introduce you is understanding what expenses are in QuickBooks. So all of this you guys can read. It's just informational. There's no exercise for you to actually do. But I do want to go over this just real quick before I dive into the actual lecture. So here, what's it's asking is, so on the home page, again, with the home page, you have a little web design here of exactly what happens when you're dealing with either expenses or creating liabilities. So if you have a relationship with a vendor, you're more likely to create a liability, which means you increase your accounts payable. Now, that's not always often true. You can pay your vendors, you could pay, it could be like a quick expense that, or maybe you're purchasing something from a store that's contributing to your inventory, which you can obviously pay cash with or a check with. It's it's just they generally suggest you to primarily use QuickBooks, especially to use it for your bills per se. If you're using everything and everything's in cash basis, it kind of defeats the purpose of why you're using QuickBooks, because you're paying everything via cash. You're not entering the bills in properly. So they that's why they highly suggest you to follow this little guideline here, okay? So there are two ways you can enter a bill, okay? You can either enter it via enter bills icon, which is pretty straightforward, or if you create a purchase expense, you are creating a bill that you haven't received yet. So it's kind of, when we move on to inventory, all of this will make a whole bunch of sense. But there are two ways you can enter a bill, okay? You can either enter a bill when your vendor sends you one, or you can create one using a purchase order. Now, again, here is the line of work, okay? If you were to create a purchase order, what happens is you're going to send that to your vendor and for your inventory. When you receive your inventory, you're going to either receive a packaging slip and or a bill along attached with it. And what happens is you're going to enter it against inventory. All right. Once you do that, then it breaks down here because you received a bill. Then now all you have to do is pay for it. If you have like independent contractors, or let's say you contracted someone to fix or remodel your business or your company location, and they just send you a bill, you just go ahead and directly enter it here. Okay, so yes, again, and once you enter the bill, it's gonna automatically remind you to. The next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna pay it. So the great thing about the vendor, the pay bills option is, every time you enter a bill, it's going to set a date for you. And what you can do is you can also set reminders for these bills that need to be paid, right? Usually, when we talked earlier about terms. So terms is when a vendor or you giving a customer basically a time limit that allows you to either know when to pay. Some vendors give you a generous discount if you pay on time, but most oftentimes, like any 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 person that you're or any vendor that you actually purchase things from, usually they have like a 30-day policy whether you should pay within the next month, within that next 30 days. Some of them are shorter than that, but it's really cool what QuickBooks can do, because it can alert you for when you have those bills readily available to pay. So here I was talking about vendors. The book actually describes two different types of vendors. You have your credit vendors and you have your cash vendors. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. If you're talking about your credit vendors, you are going to be talking about the vendors that you're going to be entering into either the enter bills application or your purchase orders application. Okay, that is when you start creating a liability, you start creating an account, and so it's pretty straightforward. It's pretty self-explanatory for what a credit vendor is. Now, and then when I spoke earlier, you do have your vendors that you pay via either a check to, So those are considered cash vendors. And here's a little table here on, let me see, I think it's 102, or no, sorry, 99. There's a little table here that kind of explains the difference between those kind of vendors, okay? And why and where to distribute them or where to place them in order to pay them, okay? And we're going to also look at our options too on how to pay for these vendors. So, okay. So, yes, so let's go ahead and move forward to our first thing that we're going to be looking up at. So again, I believe it was yesterday, we got to see a little small view of what a vendor center looks like. Okay, so here again, the vendor center, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to see your list of vendors right here. I'm going to go ahead and collapse actually, never mind. So here we have a list of our vendors, right? They're in alphabetical order. You can change this order. You have their balances of how much you owe them. And then when you click on each vendor, you're going to have a little quick view of their information as well as their transactions. So this person I don't have any transactions for, but let's see. For state board, so this is where we have to need to pay our sales tax. We're going to go view all. Okay, so here we can see that we still owe them money. Okay, we owe them since 2019. Well, of course, 2018. So of course, QuickBooks, the great thing about QuickBooks, well actually good and bad, is that every time you open up a file, it's going to be remaining from the date that it was created. So this was created in 2018. So we may have to do some adjustments so that it fits, so then when we do our examples that it will make sense. So we make it fast forward to the current time versus focusing on things that happened in the past. So again, it gives you a quick view of the vendor's information and a quick view of their transactions that they have with you. Okay. So, wow. So for example, Wong and Son, they have a bill that they sent you. All right. So when we double click that, the bill should pop up, and as you can see, I'm going to expand this. So here's the bill that you received. You received it, and it's supposed to be due in 30 days. It should tell you whether it's past due or not, but this happened on January 2019. That is way, way, way overdue. But that is okay for this example. But yes, as you can see, they billed you for certain things that they offer. So they're an independent contractor. They billed you because they did a job for you. Again, each thing, when we're looking at the bill, it just gives us pretty much all the information. Now, when we actually enter the bill, you're going to be entering all this information because you need to know how much they're going to charge you. Now, when we set up our vendors, some of these things will automatically fill in for you. So that's the first thing that I want to talk about, is we're going to be looking at setting up our vendors. Okay, so let me go ahead and exit out of this. And perfect. We're in the vendor center already. So let's go ahead and get our vendors started. Okay, so let's go ahead and view how many options you can to create a vendor. Okay, so here there are 6 ways to get to, well, 3 ways to get to the vendor center. And there are, from there are 3 ways to enter a brand new vendor. So I'm going to go ahead and exit this vendor center real quick. And let's explore our options to see how to get to the vendor center. Okay, so the number 1 I'm going to show you is straightforward, right here, vendor center. Okay, where else do you think you can find the vendor center? Anybody?
Under vendors?
Yes.
Okay, yes, you could do, yeah, under vendors where?
In the menu bar?
On the menu bar, good. Where else?
Under my company on the icon bar.
Oh, you mean, it's just, you could just go ahead and just say icon bar in general. It could be, this can change whatever it is. It doesn't have to be under my company, but it is there. Good. Okay, so good. So those are the 3 ways you can get to your vendor center. So I'm going to go ahead and cheat and go through my homepage because it's obviously the easiest way to get to your vendor center. So there you go. Now, how to create a new vendor. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you the options. And then when we move on to actually starting to practice it, that's when I'll still ask you. So here we have a list of our vendors here. You can go ahead and enter a brand new vendor by going to the top. Pretty straightforward. It says right here, new vendor. Now, you have, when you go to the top part, you actually have 2 ways you can enter your vendors. You could either enter one manually, or you could actually enter them all at once in a list. Okay, so we'll get to explore those in a second. Okay. The next one you could do is at the very bottom. Okay, it's not on my bottom. Okay, so what you can do is you can right click, and it's going to allow you to enter a new vendor. Okay, right here, new vendor. Okay, and yes, I guess there's only 2 ways. Okay, anyways, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused with actually entering a bill. So there's only actually 2 ways. Once you get to the vendor center, so that's the home page. You get to the home page to the vendor center, then you can either right click and click and add a new vendor, or you can go to the vendor center and go to new vendor. Okay, so you can either add them one at a time or add multiple. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new vendor at the top of the window. And let's go ahead and see what happens when we add a new vendor. So here it's going to ask us a few series of questions, right? The more descriptive you are, or the more information that you add on here, the better that QuickBooks can pull the information for you every time you utilize this vendor. So that's the great thing about QuickBooks is once you've entered all the data in here, like their address, their phone number, anything that has any information on the vendor, every time you enter it, when you enter a bill or maybe you're going to do a purchase order, it will automatically populate and fill in the information for you. Okay, so that's really cool. So let's go ahead and look at our example. So our example is going to ask us to enter a brand new vendor, okay? And we've already explored that. We are going to go view it here. So again, this one is going to show you how to enter the new vendor. So here, this is our vendor window. So I believe our first example that they want us to fill in is going to be Boswell Consultant. Okay, let me see. Yes, right here. Enter Boswell Consultants as the vendor name. So here, vendor name. Okay, so this one's going to ask me for my company name instead of the vendor. So, again, if you're dealing with a person, you want to, every time you enter their information in the following fields, it will categorize it by their last name. Now, you can either, if your vendor is that specific person, then go ahead and put that person. But if it's a company, you want to make sure that you put their actual company name. So in this case, here's the company name. It's Boswell Consultant. Okay. All right. And then let's see what the next information tells us. Okay, so now it's going to ask us to fill in all the information that you see on page 102. All right. So here we got Mr. Stephen Boswell. Okay, so he's going to be the owner of Boswell Consultants. Oh, and it's actually consulting. So I have to fix that. So it's Boswell Consulting. And it allows you to address whoever the person in the company is. So in this case, his full name is Mr., right? And his first name is Stephen. And if he has a middle initial, you could also be very specific for that, because you can have a person with the same name. So here I put in Stephen Boswell. Okay. And what is his job title? He is the owner of the store. All right. Let's go ahead and look at the rest of the information. If I can have a volunteer to go ahead and help me read the rest of this information. So the next question is asking, what is the main phone number? Anyone? Okay.
Okay, you want the phone number?
Yeah. So, can everyone be on page? Okay, 510.
555 0305.
0305. All right. Do they have a work phone number?
Same number.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's not. I'm sorry. Close. 510 555 5500.
Okay. Do they have a mobile? No.
No.
Fax?
No.
Okay, so good. So now that we got their phone number, now we need to enter in their address. Now, if you notice, every time I kept filling up the information, so here I have Boswell Consulting, right? And I have Mr. Stephen Boswell. You notice that the address bar is actually starting to fill in the information for you. So isn't that really cool? And then the next thing is, so what is the address for Mr. Boswell Consulting?
PO Box 620.
Oopsies, P-O Box 620.
620. Oakland, California. Nine 4 6 1 0.
Perfect. And so once we have this filled out, if his shipping address is the same as his billing address, instead of like copying and pasting all of this over here, you could just go ahead and click this. Copy, you fill in the information, and you click OK, and it's going to copy everything that you wrote here into this box. So to save you some time and typing errors, you want to make sure that those information are correct, but you can just copy it straight over here and say that his shipping address is the same. Now, we are not done yet, so make sure you don't click the OK button. So now we're going to be looking over here on the left column over here. This left area is going to allow you to enter additional information that is very, very pertinent to the vendor itself. Okay, so for example, the next thing I have here is going to be payment settings. Okay, so payment settings it's going to ask you for an account number. Now, this account number, depending on who it is, if we're looking at a vendor, this account number is going to be the account number that you are using. So this is the number that this vendor gave you as a way to that this is your account on his side. So does anybody can tell me what the account number is?
66-112.
Okay. And then do we have a credit limit when he gave us our account?
No.
No. And billing, any billing level, price levels?
No.
No. Okay. All right. And then lastly, payment terms. Does he give us payment terms?
Yes. 2% net, or 2% 10 net 30.
So you can either type it in or you can go ahead and look at your options. So 2% 10 net 30 is what he allows us to have. And then again, print name on a check. You want to make sure that it's either Boswell Consulting or it could be Stephen Boswell itself. Now, I think this is okay, right? We're going to write the check to him via Boswell Consulting.
Yes.
All right. Cool. All right. Now, let's go ahead and look at tax settings. So, if this person is a 1099, it is very, very crucial that you get their tax ID number. Okay, so that you can make sure that you report them as to make sure that they are an independent contractor. So that's the one important thing that you need to know when you're dealing with tax settings, is when you need to collect their actual tax ID number. For this case, because he is just consulting, he doesn't really work. He's not a 1099 worker to us. He's just someone that we just seek advice for. So this is also for tax purposes for both his end and my end. So let's go ahead and determine what is the vendor's tax ID number.
123. -12 -1234.
Perfect. Okay,
And
so
it's 1099.
and yes, we checked that he's a 1099.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I guess he does work for us as a 1099. Okay, so yes, so make sure that you click all those information because again, so now that we know that he is working for us as a 1099, this number right here is his social security number, so this is going to validate whether he is truly a 1099 worker or is he just a regular person. Okay, so this is so that we can exempt we can exempt him from our taxes and he can use us to claim the taxes. All right, next is going to be account setting. All right, so this is when we are going to every time we utilize his this vendor's information, we're going to associate with things that affect our accounts. So in this case, how many accounts are going to be affected when we use Boswell Consulting? I think it's professional expense.
Professional fees.
Professional fees, okay. So again, I don't know what number that is, so I'm just gonna go ahead and type in professional, and I found it. Professional fees, okay. So because we need to associate him with some form of an expense, we see that he is going to be categorized as an expense to us via via professional fees. Anything else? Is that just it? I think that was just it.
That's it.
Perfect. All right. So we set him up there. Lastly, we have is additional information. Now remember, we talked really briefly about this, I believe on yesterday. Was it yesterday? Or was it on Thursday where we talked about having custom fields? Okay. So here we have the vendor type, and here we automatically have a custom field for county. Okay, so I have a question for you guys. Pop quiz. How many total custom fields can you have in QuickBooks? How many? 15. Good. How many out of the 15? How many fields can a person have?
5.
7 per vendor.
Not 5, but yes, 7 for per vendor, per customer, and per employee. So anything dealing with a person, it is 7. Anything dealing other than a person, such as items or lists or things like that, only 5. Okay, so good. So you know what? I'm going to be creative and I'm going to enter in something that I want to put in here because it's great to know that what his county is, so we can kind of separate our like relations as to some kind of department. But I want to focus on, you know, let's say I want to know when his business started. Because maybe I want to congratulate him for when his business started. Another thing is I want to know his spouse's name. Or I think I could just do spouse name.
Spouse name is already up top under county.
Is it?
Do we
Oh,
need to
it
add a
is. No, because then we utilize one of our 15 spaces. Good. Thank you for that. So spouse name is already in here. And but it's not selected as something that we can put for our vendor. I want to make sure I know that for our customer, vendor, and employee. So, okay, so it's good for employees. So here I want to know the business start date. That's a good one. I want to make sure that's applied to just our vendors. So make sure that you select each one that you want to utilize those extra custom fields for. And I'm going to click OK. Oh, sorry. And I'm going to click OK up here. Do not display. Okay. So now I have three custom fields I want to put in here. Now, what kind of vendor type is he? He is consultant. Okay. And then what county did he belong to?
Alameda.
Alameda. Is it
A-L-A-M-E.
L-A-M-E-T-A?
M.
Oh, D-A. Ah, hold on. Give me like 3 seconds. Okay, let's do it again. A-L-I-A.
M is in Mary. E. D
E-D-A.
is in David.
A. Perfect. Alameda. I always get that one's wrong. I live in California. I still get it wrong. Okay, so spouse's name. Okay, I'm gonna make up a very basic name. Since his name is Steven, I'm gonna say her name is Susan. All right, and then so business start date. I'm gonna say he established his business back in July. I don't know, 26 of 2002. I don't know. I'm just making up a random date. So then now I know that when July comes around, I can send him a nice congratulatory gift saying, successful years for so long, because especially of our vendors, this is, again, the more information we gather about our people, the more better our relationship will become. So for us, sending a gift to congratulate them for their business, is a good sign, right? And plus, if they've been consulting with us for quite some time, it's good to also be, because you might get invited to their opening, maybe they have another department, they're gonna have a grand opening, these things, you're basically inviting yourself to create a stronger relationship with your vendor, customer, or employee. So now that I reached to the bottom of my list here, that is all the information I can actually put in here. All right, and then I'm going to click OK. Now what's going to happen is Boswell Consulting is going to be right here. And if we look carefully, we tap here, all of his information has populated on the on the right side. Okay?
Now, can we edit the information now to add his main email and his website?
That is absolutely, yes, you can. So what happens is you can either go right click on his name and click edit. Oh, where's edits? Edit vendor. You can go down to the bottom and new transactions, and you'd be able to edit your, oh, okay, never mind. I guess you can't do it that way. You should be able to do it multiple ways, but definitely this one, you can go ahead and just right click it and edit, or you could just double click it and it will automatically populate this. So yes, I did miss that part. So yes, so his email is going to be, I think is it Steven at Boswell?
It's Steve at boswellrightnow.us.
At Boswell dot
boswellrightnow.us.
.us. Okay. Website is going to be boswell.us. boswellrightnow.us.
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and put the infamous www. Boswell right now .us. Okay. So yes, you can enter in as much data as you want and edit it at any given time. Okay. So let's say you found out something more interesting about him. Go ahead, create the custom field for it, and you can edit it at any time. So here I've already saved it. And thank you for that. Okay? So that's how you enter in a vendor one at a time. Now, I'm not going to do this, but I'm going to show you what you can do. So let's say you're starting up your company, right? And you filled out you filled out the initial setup, and now you're blank, starting from scratch. You need to enter a list of all of your vendors. So here, this is what you can do. You can go ahead and enter multiple vendors at one time. So given like this is another way we can enter our information via list. Okay, so here, yeah, hit the wrong button again. So here I can go to the bottom and start entering a brand new thing in here, and if I wanted to, I can add in as many people at one time, so simultaneously. I can edit them at the same time as well. Another thing is, if you already have a pre-made list, okay, for example, on Excel, you are able to actually enter it in that way too. You can copy and paste from Excel and enter it here. And then, I don't know, I think it's supposed to be at the bottom of the screen. It allows you to also export or import, not export. It allows you to import an actual Excel file in here. Let's say you have it all set and everything, right? You can go ahead and import all of your all of your vendors' information using Excel. Okay. I think it really is at the bottom of my page. I just can't see it because it's okay. So here you can enter as many as 3 at one time, but obviously you got to do one at a time. But yes, you can enter in as many vendors simultaneously. Okay. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to show you that for now. Okay. So instead of spending so much time, entering one detail at a time, if you have the list already, you can just copy and paste it, and it will make a lot easy. It will make entering the people in that you need for your company a lot quicker and a lot easier. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and exit this window.
Lynn,
Yes.
tell them that they have to make sure their Excel matches the columns in their QuickBooks, and show them how to do that.
Yeah, I can't find the button though.
Go to customize columns up there in the upper right hand corner.
So it is up here. Okay, customize columns.
That's customize columns, yeah. Make sure all those columns match the exact location of the columns on the Excel.
Okay, so yes.
Otherwise, the information is going to go in the wrong tab.
Okay, so when you Okay, so yes, so if you do have an Excel file, right, that has a list of all of your vendors' information that you just want to copy and paste in. So what you do is you need to make sure that the top headings match all those information. So if in case that you don't have it, you can manipulate your Excel file to either have it or if it's set in a specific way, again, you can manipulate your Excel sheet to move those columns to exactly where you need them. And yes, and if it works in your way to make sure that it's aligned to your QuickBooks or your QuickBooks aligned to your Excel sheet, you can move these columns up and down right here with the move column. All right. All right. I wish I could show you an example, but I want to make sure that we cover everything in chapter 4. So that is enough for vendors. So again, there are easy ways that you can fill out information. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and look at what is next. Okay, so we skipped all this. We entered Boswell already, and we filled out all of his information. So now the next thing is activating class tracking. All right. So what is class tracking? Okay, class tracking can be best described as a way to separate or organize your business, or having a specific, what do you call it? I don't know how to describe it, but if you read here, it is generally used to separate your business either by department, by line of business, or by location. Okay, so for example, in this book, it tells you right here that they use this class to separate their 2 locations. So they have a San Jose location and they have a Walnut Creek location. So it's right here, okay? So what you can do with that is, if you separate or have a class, you can do separate reports and see which location is doing better, okay? Now, it's not limited to exactly location. Again, you can use it for department, right? For example, Frito-Lay, right? Frito-Lay also has PepsiCo, right? They belong all together, right? I believe Frito-Lay and PepsiCo are one company, and they have a line of business of chips, and then they have soda. So what they can do is they can see which one is actually selling more. Usually, chips sell when soda sells. So you can use it as an advantage for you to measure your profit margins that way. You can also do it by department, where so that was line of business. So what you could do for department is, like, let's say I have my admin department, and I have my actual projects management department, right? I'm going to see which one is actually causing me more expenses and which one is actually profiting. Is it my admin that's doing the main core of the business, or is it my profit or my projects management over here? Are they creating more? Are they generating more income? So that's the great thing about having classes. You can segregate them on any specific detail, whether it's a line of product, department, or location, or anything specific that you want to separate. It could even be by person if you wanted to. Let's say you want to measure, you have 2 employees, like 2 really good employees, right? You want to see, did this guy make a lot more sales than this guy? It's your personal preference on how you want to organize your information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to activate those in QuickBooks. So again, this is going to be dealing with something that you're going to be customizing your actual QuickBooks for, because we want to be able to have the capability to separate our business. So in this case, I'm going to go to Edit, and I'm going to go to Preferences. All right, and it's going to be under the category Accounting, and it's going to be a company setting. Now, the first thing it's going to say, it should be the second one, use class tracking for transactions. So okay, it's already selected. Okay, and then yes, so it's already selected and checked marked, because again, for Academy Photography, we do already use them because we have a San Jose location and we have a Walnut Creek location. So again, I just wanted to show you how you can activate it and how you can separate your information that way. All right. And I believe the next thing that we're going to be talking about is job costing. So I believe it's in the same section too, if you want to have a job costing. Now, what job costing actually does for you as a company is, let's say I have a customer and he's looking into buying a special camera for this specific case study. He wants to buy a camera through us. So what we're going to do is we're going to customize his job and say that we bought this specific product for this specific person. Okay, so obviously we're not going to give him the price of our vendor. We're going to give him a price including our fee because we had to go and buy it for you. So that is one thing that you can do, is you can do custom jobs. Okay, so let me see. Custom jobs. Okay, we will actually dive that more into that when we actually dive into chapter 9, I believe, when we're dealing with billing and time. That's where you actually start specifically having that job costing. So buying specific things for a person, or what is it? Or if they created some kind of expense for you, that's what we're going to be learning that more in depth about that in chapter 9. So good. So now that we have our class active, okay, so that allows us to separate our entities or our business transactions accordingly to this specific store location. Okay. All right. So the next thing that we're going to be looking into, how we pay vendors. Now there's actually a couple ways that we're going to be looking into when we're paying our vendors. Okay. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay. We pay our vendors either cash, check, credit card, you name it, electronic transfer, you name it. They're all possible, and you can do all of them. Now, again, when we're talking about our credit vendors and our cash vendors, you need to be specific on how you pay them. Okay, so again, if you go back to that chart, we're obviously going to pay our credit vendors through check. Okay, and then our cash vendors, pretty straightforward. We're going to pay them through cash, or we can write them a check. They do the same thing. All right. And what we're going to be looking into is going to see the difference when we are actually entering information, or we're going to be looking at the difference between writing a check for the sake of writing a check, or just that. We're going to be looking at paying an actual bill off. And then lastly, we're going to be looking into a credit card transaction. So hopefully we'll get to the credit card transaction for today. But if not, maybe we might have time to look at it tomorrow or some other time in the week. Okay? So the very first thing is I want you to understand is there are a few things that when we're looking into writing a check, obviously, where does the check come from? It comes from the bank. So here we want to make sure that when we go into the banking section, that we look at our options very carefully, okay? So we have a reconcile, which we will talk about in chapter 5. And then we have here, recording our deposits. So when we receive money, right, it doesn't go directly into the bank unless it's electronic transfer or it's a credit card, right? The only way that you can when you receive a check is you need to deposit it into the actual bank, okay? And that actually requires you to go to the bank and put it into the bank manually. This is just a way for you to keep track of that as well, okay? You have the option to write a check, and you also have the check register, which is going to allow you to see what your transactions are in the bank. And then here you have your credit card transactions, and here gives you the options to print your checks. So I'm going to go ahead and explore the check register, and it's going to ask you to make sure that you're going to be looking into the correct checking. Now, of course, a business, you can have as many checking accounts as you want. It's up to you. Maybe you don't want to look at your checkings. You want to look into your savings account, your money markets, anything that you want to look at, you can look at. You can toggle it here, but you have to enter it through the initial setup. So you guys remember when we finish our initial setup, the pop-up window says enter in either your bank, your employees, or your vendors. See, that is exactly where you set it up. Okay, and I'm gonna click checking because that's my primary account that I have here, and I'm gonna click OK. Now this is going to be a list of all of my transactions here. All right. So as you can see, the fine line between all of these, you can see that they're very detailed with a date and with a check and the check number. Now, notice here on this little column here, you have a diverse entry here. You got your tax payment here. You have a check written here. You have a bill payment here. So the great thing about this is when we are paying our expenses, we can actually categorize them as either as a bill payment, or if it's just a check that we wrote for the sake of a check. Okay, we just wanted to pay for something. Maybe we went to the supply store and we made a payment via cash. But what you can do is that you can go ahead and record it as, you could just go ahead and record it as is, okay? And you can just label it as a check. Now, again, one thing I do need to tell you is there is a difference between actually paying for an expense and actually paying for an actual bill. Okay, so when we go ahead and do these transactions, I'll explain as we go. So for the first example, it's asked us to open up the check register, and this time we're just gonna, we went to the store, we picked up some office supplies, okay, so we went to, I forgot what it's called, I think it's, we went to, say that again?
Are you looking for Bay Office Supply?
That is correct. Yes, that is the one I'm looking for. So we went to Bay Office Supply and to pay for office supplies. Okay, so hold on, paying vendors. Okay, so here we are. So here we're going to recognize that we need to pay off Bay office supplies. Okay, so if everyone's not here, please be on page 108. Okay, so yes, we're looking for Bay office supplies. So here we're at the check register, and we're going to be entering in straight into the register. Now, if you guys remember from chapter 1, this is such a long time ago, but there are 3 ways you can enter a transaction, okay? And this is one of them. So we talked about the first one is going to be entering it in as forms, right? Forms is exactly what it looks like. So when we entered in the data for the vendors, that is a form. You're filling out information that as much as possible with the empty blank fields, right? The other example that we looked at was entering our vendors. You can enter in as a list. We entered them in simultaneously, and we entered in as much information as possible. Now, here's the third way we can enter in a transaction. You can enter it in by straight into the register. So here is the register, right? And we could just enter it straight in right here. So we're at the very bottom. We're going to enter in the date, and we're going to enter in for whatever amount it is. Now, when we do this, okay, it's going to automatically populate a check number for you. So let's go ahead and look at the example, and so we can make sure that we enter in everything correctly. So this one is going to be asking us to enter in, we're going to be entering in, so 331 should automatically populate in here. Now let's see what date we need to put it in as. Okay, so let me see, what time is it, just to make sure that we're on time. I'm going to try to go through this example real quick, and we'll take a break at 10 o'clock. Okay, does that sound good? Okay, does that sound good? Okay for everybody? Okay, so here we want to enter in a date, and I'm going to make it a little closer and realistic to our time period. So I'm going to say I bought this. Let me see. We're focusing on February. So I'm going to say I bought this on February 25th. Okay. And then it's supposed to populate 331. So it skipped a number here. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that. Now it's going to ask you who the payee is. And the payee is going to be Bay, is it Bay Office Supplies?
Bay Office Supply.
Okay. Now, once I click away from that, it's going to recognize, hey, this vendor we've never seen before. Would you like to add them into, would you like to have them added into QuickBooks? And generally, this is very, 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 very important that you do add every single vendor, even if they're not super important. Reason being is, what if I go back to this vendor and I say, I want a refund? You need to make that adjustment and make sure that you went back to this, you know what I mean? So this is you keeping track of your vendor as well, okay? So what you can do is when you go ahead and click Quick Add, and then you're going to get a little window that says this. What are they? Are they a vendor? Are they a customer, employee? And they are a vendor because we bought from them. So I'm going to click OK. And now they're entered into the system. Now, I only have their name. I don't have any other information upon them. I don't have their address. I don't have any of those information. Reason being is what you have to do is, because they're just a one-time shop vendor, I guess you can say, you don't really need to edit their information unless it's necessary. Now, again, this is what the great thing about QuickBooks is. You can upload your receipts just to be safe and make sure that you validate every single transaction with a source document. So what you can do is later on, you can go ahead and enter in the details for that vendor, okay? You don't have to do it now, you can do it later. So here we entered in Bay Office Supplies, okay? Now it's gonna ask us, what account did you take it out of? Well, it's pretty clear, I bought office supplies. So here, I already have an account for office supplies, all right? Now it's gonna ask you for the next thing is, what kind of memo did you wanna write? I think I put office supplies for, let me see. For the memo column, you can write printer paper, okay? And then for the amount, we're going to put, let me see, where's the amount? What's the next one?
It's 128.60. You just passed it.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so 128.60. Okay, perfect. So we're making a purchase of printer paper. So that's our memo. Our memo could be anything that you want to make a reference for. So, I mean, it makes sense if I just write it in here because office supplies could be anything. But in this case, I actually bought printer paper. Okay. And how much did you say it was? 120?
128.60.
128.60. All right. Now, I'm not going to press enter, but once I do that, it should validate my transaction as far as that. Let me see. Okay, good. There you go. I had to press enter. Oh, yeah, that's right. Enter. So once I press enter, I validate that this transaction is complete. I am done with that. And once I do that, it's going to automatically recalculate my balance in my checkbook or my banking, okay? So here I validated that I paid $128.60 for printer paper, okay? So awesome. All right, so that's how you can enter information in a register. And this is us going to a local store and we make a payment. Now, the one thing that you want to make sure is if you are, let's say, I didn't really write that check, okay, but I do it for good purposes. Of reason being is to keep track of your transactions. If I paid in cash, I can also edit in the information. I could say this is a debit card instead of a check. I can also write things like that, okay? So again, if you are using cash basis, this wouldn't actually make any sense to you because you're already going to keep track via your bank account. So this is just a way to keep track of your account. So I wrote a check to them for that amount. Now it's going to ask me how I can make a split payment because in reality, it's true. Maybe you think you don't have enough money in your bank, right? I don't know if you've ever been one of those people, but I have used 2 credit cards before to pay for one item. All right. And what you can do is that is an option you can choose. This one is we are not using 2 different type of payment methods, but this one we are going to split the transaction via based on the store location. So how are you going to do that? Well, it's pretty simple. If you want to split a transaction or divide the expense, you're going to go ahead and double click this transaction. So what's going to happen is once you double click this transaction, you notice that you bought printer paper, great, for the total amount of $128.60. Now, this may be a little different because I do not see the button where it says split payment. So what you can do is, as long as it's for the total amount of this, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take 128, and how much money am I going to split that? It should let you know. So in my QuickBooks, I don't have that split payment option, okay? For me, I just have to just do it right away. Okay, but for 2018, when you guys do load your QuickBooks in there, you will see that split payment option, okay? So in this one, I am going to split the printer paper to 28, okay, so I am going to split it to $100. And I'm going to transfer that amount to who? And I'm going to transfer that to the custom job column by pressing tab. Okay. So who am I buying this printer paper for? It should have been, okay, so I have one section is to San Jose, okay, in the class, and the memo is going to be for computer and internet expense is going to be the second one. Okay, and let me see. Keep going, keep going, keep going. So for $28.60 is going to go to internet so to computer and internet expense. So here I'm going to transfer the printer paper, and I'm sending that one. Okay, so this is going to be for $100. All right, and this one, here, if I can make it bigger for you guys so you guys can see what the expense is. This one is for computer and internet. So computer and internet expense, perfect. And, oop, tap the wrong thing again, cancel. So computer, and I'm gonna hit tab. And this one's going to be for $28.60. Tab. And is in the memo I'm going to put to correct, okay? And the memo column, press tab. So we're going to write cables for the memo here. Perfect. Okay, so this one, again, when we have these transactions, you are able to separate where they actually belong to. So in this case, let me see, did the printer paper go to San Jose? I believe so. The printer paper went to San Jose, and for this internet and cable, it's going to be okay, so so we're actually going to skip the class call. We're going to actually put into Walnut Creek for the internet and cable expense. So here I'm going to go ahead and enter that in here. So we have custom jobs, and then here we have class. Class is going to be San Jose for the printer paper, okay? And we have Walnut Creek for the internet, okay? All right, once we've done that, then we can go ahead and press OK, and that will validate it will split the cost amongst the two places. Excuse me, and then make sure you click yes, I validate that. And if you have sound, you're gonna get that beep of approval. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. So, oops. And